Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us. Maybe a request for our friends standing along the walls or what have you. If you are seated and there's a seat in the middle, can you scooch in and become really close friends with the person next to you so our friends here can have a seat? Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ryan Jones. I lead the Managed Platform team, ensuring that IT is able to empower their organization using Power Apps, Power Automate, and Microsoft Copilot Studio. And so I think if we look at how we've typically delivered technology and transformation in our organizations, what we found is the impact that people are able to deliver. At the end of the day, it's kind of been limited by the level of technical expertise that they have. And while we've been making efforts to really shift this curve, what we see is AI is making this happen, in that we see that now the ability to drive business impact is much more closely aligned with the level of business process expertise that resides within various parts of the business. You know, every one of these studies that I read that talks about how folks are trying to figure out how to get value out of AI, what we find is usually the business is not involved enough, right? We in technology, we know bits and bytes. We do not know recruiting. We do not know accounts payable or receivable. And so with AI, it really allows the folks who know and understand these business processes to deliver outsized impact. And so in this world, what is our role? What is our job as technology leaders? And I think this little image right here really sums it up. At the end of the day, it's our job to balance the needs of innovation with the risk that we can take for our organizations, right? Because if we don't take into consideration risk, we end up in the news, we end up in the unemployment line, so on and so forth, right? None of us wants that. On the other hand, if we don't enable and empower the business to innovate, well, you won't end up in jail, but you'll still end up looking for a job, right? It reminds me, how many of you remember back when we were moving to the public cloud? None of you remember that? Come on. I know it's the first session of the day, but just go with me here, right? And I remember I would chat with folks as we were going through that transition, and there were people, I called them server clutchers. They're like, we'll never move to the public cloud, right? Any of you remember some of those conversations? Okay. At first, I really freaked out. And then what started happening is those people, they weren't there the next year for the exec briefing, right? And I think that's the same place that we sit today when it looks to how we drive adoption and usage of AI within our organizations. And so if I look across our customers who are the most effective with digital and AI transformation, again, regardless of modality, apps, automations, agents, the thing is what they have found is that the traditional processes of security, risk, compliance review simply do not scale to meet the pace of innovation that AI is driving. And so what they have done is they've implemented what we call an adaptive or a zoned governance strategy, where they define a green zone. This green zone is openly available like oxygen. Anybody who has an idea can start, can build without talking with IT. Not that y'all aren't awesome. I want to talk to you. They want to talk to you too. But they can get started. They can realize their idea without needing to fill out a license request form, without needing to create an entry in your CMDB. And I know this is a strange way of looking at the world, but when we look at our customers that have hundreds of thousands of users who leverage Power Apps, Power Automate, and MCS every month, this is the blueprint that they follow. Now the thing is, because everyone can build and get started with no friction, this also means that in that green zone, they can't do whatever they want. Data connectivity options are often limited. Sharing is often limited as well. But again, this provides a constrained sandbox in which people can start realizing, building their ideas. At the other end of the spectrum, we have the red zone. If you think about an agent that's going to be published to your public website, that is inherently high risk. That is going to be, at a minimum, an IT involved or an IT partnership endeavor, if not an IT led endeavor. And then we have the yellow zone that's kind of in between these two, what's really more around collaboration and building these things individually. Now, I realize I see lots of cameras coming up to take pictures, and so you might think that I made this up, and I'll tell you, I'm not that smart. The thing is, if you look across more broadly, this is the exact same framework that Gartner, how many of you are Gartner clients out there, has come up with for adoption of low-code and AI. Now, maybe you don't like Gartner for some reason. I don't know why you wouldn't. You know, they're a nice group of people. That's okay. Guess what? Forrester wrote the exact same thing a few years before that, okay? And I would also highlight that what they documented was actually about how Shell, you know, any of you drove this morning, you probably filled up your car with some of their gasoline. That's how they drove it in their organization. If these aren't enough examples, we actually see how this culture of creativity and innovation aligns with how people name their zones. Two of my favorites I'll share with you, Lumen technology, telecom, big in the Pacific Northwest. Any of you familiar with Lumen? A few of you? Okay, so for them, their green zone is Lumen Spark. You have a spark of an idea, it's where you go and you build. If you want to build collaboratively, Lumen Mesh. If you need to build something that's a true enterprise-grade application, that's Lumen Core. Make sense? Another example that I love, Heineken. Now I know everybody's going to raise their hands. Familiar with Heineken, right? Their green zone, Heineken 0.0. Their yellow zone, Heineken Light. Their red zone, full Heineken. You see, like progressive risk as you drink your way across the spectrum, I guess. So, all kidding aside, again, this zoned governance framework is key to how we see customers driving transformation at scale. Now, of course, as they do that, there's always a bunch of decision makers involved. And the thing is, as I engage with customers, I find that there are a few people that are either prone to say no. None of those in this room, right? We're all yeses, yes and in this room. Or there are people that need to be supported by our technology platforms that we choose. The first is the CIO. They're very concerned about governance and enablement, lifecycle oversight, so on and so forth. We have the head of operations, or sometimes enterprise architects, that's wanting to make sure that the organization has great change management, is able to see to it that apps and agents are always running and running well. We have the emerging role of the chief AI officer, whose goal is to see to it that the company has an AI strategy, and that AI strategy is in fact delivering tangible ROI for the organization. And then we have the CISO, who at the end of the day is accountable for information and data security across the organization, and they want to make sure that these tools do not create undue risk. And so, what I'd like to do is I'd like to walk you through the capabilities that we have in the product that help satisfy the top concerns for each of these groups that I've put up on the screen. And so to start, we'll walk through our managed governance capabilities. And this starts from the moment that a maker shows up in Power Apps, Power Automate, or Copilot Studio. With our maker onboarding capability, what we allow you to do is to provide content that help your makers get started, as well as of this week, also allow you to require them to check that they have read and understood the content that's outlined there. How many of you have a SharePoint site that you've built that tells people how to start using Power Apps, Power Automate, Copilot Studio? A number of you. How many people in your organization actually know that that site exists and go and read it? Yeah, exactly. And so you can put that information directly within the product experience. Now the other thing, and I'd like to explain this capability using a metaphor. How many of you use OneDrive today? Every one of you. How many of you use SharePoint today? Every single one of you. How many of you would have started using, let's say, OneDrive if the way it started was by putting everybody in your organization within the exact same OneDrive? Exactly, none of you. Guess what we just described? The default environment. How many of you love the default environment? Yeah, no hands went up, exactly. And so what we've done is we've added a capability called environment routing, where as users come to any of the maker portals, as if they don't already have a personal environment, one is created for them automatically, okay? And so that becomes their OneDrive for personal innovation. And in 99% of cases, this is in that green zone, okay? Now, beyond that, we realize that we have customers now with hundreds of thousands of environments within their tenants. And so to be able to manage and govern those at scale, what we've done is we've introduced a capability called groups, which allows you to group, shocker, similar environments. And then you can apply rules to those groups, kind of like group policy, but for all of these different sandboxes. And so what becomes really powerful is that capability of environment routing together with environment groups and rules sees to it that as soon as someone comes to one of our making or authoring experiences, they are automatically provisioned into an environment that has all of the policies for the green zone that you have set for them. Additionally, what we find is a lot of times people will want to limit risk by implementing sharing controls, because the risk of any app, agent, or automation is directly proportional to how broadly that agent is shared in the organization. And so we have sharing limits for Power Apps, for Power Automate, for Copilot Studio as well. And we're also excited to share that those sharing limits have also been brought to declarative agents as well. Now, with all of the changes that are constantly occurring, we realize it can be challenging to keep up. And so what we've done is within the Power Platform Admin Center, we've created what we call the Copilot Hub. And the Copilot Hub centralizes all of what's changed, all of what's new, so you don't have to scour Message Center every day to see what new capabilities that we've shipped, as well as provides you with an overview of the rules that you may want to set to govern AI adoption in your organization. It also will show you how your agents are being used as well, and we'll come back to that in a little bit more, or in a little bit. Now, the other thing that we've heard from customers is that it is sometimes challenging to set up environment routing, environment rules, environment groups. And so one of the things that we currently have in private preview is a wizard that helps you wire up all of these things. And if you're interested in trying that out, please, there's a sign up link right there on the screen so that you can kick the tires and give it a whirl. Now, as we look to secure and govern and operate all of these apps, automations, and agents that have been built, the first thing that we have to do is we have to be able to see them, okay? Now, let me ask a quick question here. How many of you have deployed the Center of Excellence Starter Kit today? Okay, and how many of you use that for inventory, right? How many of you like doing that? Okay, that's what I thought. So the thing is, now inventory shows up directly within the Power Platform Admin Center so that you can see all of your apps, agents, and automations with just a few clicks. The other cool thing, and I geek out on this, I used to work in Azure many years ago, all this same information also shows up within Azure Resource Graph. And so it's trivial for you to query across all of the apps, agents, and automations in your tenant, even using KQL. Or the Kusto query language. And so I'd like to show y'all what some of this looks like. And so I am going to be a maker. And so here I have gone to Copilot Studio, and I'm immediately presented with the Contoso-specific maker welcome content. Here I can specify that I've already read and agree to the terms of use, again, kind of confirming that I understand my organization's guidelines for how I can build apps, automations, and agents. Now, if I dismiss this, you'll see that I've been provisioned into, or have been allocated, a personal development environment. And so I am an environment admin in this environment. However, any settings that have been configured via rules and groups cannot be overridden by me. And so if I flip over to the Power Platform Admin Center, and for example, look at the settings about manage environments, here you can see that many of these are grayed out. And the reason why is because these things have been governed by the rules that have been set by my administrator. Now, let's assume for a moment that I absolutely love this agent that I've built. And so I want to share it. And so remember how we talked about sharing limits earlier? If I go to share this agent, what we'll find here in a moment is that I'm not able to share this agent. Again, why is that the case? That's the case because that's what the rules specified. And so to show you how we configured all of these capabilities, I'm going to call up Ken, who also needs to wake up his laptop, to show us how he configured that. And so Ken, as soon as you're logged in, I'll switch over.
Thank you, Ryan. Hello, everyone. So as Ryan said, this journey starts with groups. Groups is the container in which we can place all our environments in. That's not where the power is, though. The power within the groups are the rules. Ryan's demonstrated maker welcome, and forgive me, because I'm a little tall and the table's a little short. So I'm getting down here. And as you can see, I can completely customize the messaging inside of here, including activating the consent, which Ryan just showed. In addition to that, I can also change the sharing limit of agents, like so, from the limit of 2 down to 1, or maybe even to 10, whatever it is that your organization may choose to use. Ryan mentioned environment routing. Environment routing has been enhanced. So not only now can you create one green zone, but you can create multiple. I can create green zones for HR, legal. I can create it for regions, departments, and so on inside of there. Additionally, once folks start innovating within my organization with agents, I can now get a quick overview inside of Copilot Hub, but I can look at security recommendations. I can see usage. I can see my top 5 agents. And as I like to tell everyone, you can't govern what you can't see. So we just talked about the COE. I see 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗶cie in the audience here. So let's look for assets for 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 How about I look for my pseudonym of 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗶ecie, if I can spell my name correctly. Just that quick, I get 𝗦𝗲𝗀's assets. How about all of the agents in the tenant? Just like that, I'm getting all of the agents. Inside of MSIT, we have 1.6 million assets. We can get them that quickly inside of there. Ryan also mentioned that I can access all of this through the Azure Resource Graph. Here I am within the resource graph right now, and I'm going to run a quick query. And as you can see, I can get my top agents inside of here. All of this I can now connect to a Power BI dashboard. Back to you, Mr. Ryan.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ken. And so now I'd like to start walking through our second pillar. Again, the pillar that's often of concern to your enterprise architects, your IT operations team. And where that starts is around deployment and change management. You know, because at the end of the day, we need to maintain separation between our development, test, and production environments. And so we now have the ability, that should say private preview, I apologize, where you can now with a single click deploy your agents from dev to test to prod environments. Now behind the scenes, solutions are what we use to package these changes and customizations and move them across environments. However, if we think about our lines of business, I joke that they probably don't know how to spell ALM, let alone know what a solution is. Sorry, that's the best the jokes are gonna get this morning. And so we have the preferred solution capability that sees to it that all of the maker's customizations are placed into a solution by default. In addition, if we think about how development environments need to map to production environments, we also have the ability to define and set the default pipeline, again, the pipeline being our tool that helps actually move those solutions across environments. You can declare those and specify those through environment rules. Now, of course, when you have pro devs working in tandem with your citizen developers, we also have native source control integration, where your changes can be automatically committed into Git repositories. And what's powerful here is not only that integration with the source control tools that you already use in your organization, but also how it enables that collaboration across pro dev and sit devs on the same projects together. Now, another thing that we find, especially with agents, is the first time an agent is deployed, that's the best it's ever going to be. And one of the ways that we continuously drive and measure improvements in Copilot Studio is with the ability to define tests and evals to continuously assess the quality of your agents. And this is super important as we think about, hey, I'd like my agent to start using a new model. When I use that new model, did the answers get better or did they get worse? You no longer have to wonder. You can empirically test this in your environment. Now, as these agents and apps become super awesome and you want to distribute them across your entire enterprise, you can submit those to your organization's catalog. Those submissions can then be reviewed by your administrators, and then those apps, agents, and automations become available for installation by anyone in your company. Now, even though we may have tested our agents, we have great change management and application lifecycle management, it's also important to know if they are running and running well. And so with our monitor capabilities, we allow you to understand the performance, the reliability, the efficacy of your various apps, automations, and agents. Now, one of the capabilities that we've added to Monitor over the last year is alerts, so that if your Power Automate workflow stops running, you get an email. How many of you have gotten a phone call from someone in the business who's upset that their Power Automate workflow stopped running? Yep, a lot of us. Now you have that visibility, and we summarize this directly in the Power Platform Admin Center for you. And where relevant, we expose this information directly to makers in the maker portals, because at the end of the day, our makers know the most about these solutions and are best positioned to take action as these issues occur. And of course, we're also super excited to announce that these monitors and these alerts now also are available for your Copilot Studio agents as well. Now, I want to take a bit of an interesting turn, because we've talked a lot today about how the Power Platform and Copilot Studio can be used to empower the business. But we think that there's something very interesting here around the Power Platform. And that is, we believe that the Power Platform is the fastest and easiest way to build line of business applications for pro devs as well. And to be clear, this is something that until earlier this year had never been available before, right? Pro devs would kind of be like, hey, I don't like Power Platform because it makes me learn Power FX, and I just want to write React code. And so with Code Apps, it allows you to build your single page applications using the technology of your choice. And we provide many of the same governance, security, operational, and transformational benefits that you get with the Power Platform otherwise. Of course, you can pick your own tools. We'll demo VS Code today. We've shown doing this through Cursor and other tools in the past. You choose your tool. You then are able to use an SDK that makes it trivial for you to use any of our 1,500 connectors within the Power Platform and Copilot Studio ecosystem. We host the application that's written within a secure sandbox so that we can limit how data flows from that client to our server, providing many of the enterprise security guarantees that you need and expect from your line of business application. And then we provide management at scale, in that these applications, they automatically show up within inventory, they automatically show up within monitor, they honor the data loss prevention or advanced connector policies that you've already set in your organization. Again, kind of bringing this way of establishing guardrails to more quickly innovate, even to pro dev written code. And so I'd like to show you what several of these things look like. So first, I have my Ignite 2025 demo agent right here. And let's see, let's ask it some questions real fast. Okay, you can see my instructions here. For all questions, tell customers to call Ken at 867-5309. We're forever indebted to 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗃. And so I'm gonna say, what time is the attendee party? Drum roll, please. For information about the attendee party at Ignite 2025, please call Ken at 867-5309, right? This is the one and done form of development, okay? So it works once, and so I think this is awesome. I wanted to share it earlier, but I was blocked, remember? And so what I can do is I can now go to deploy this. And so let me refresh, I apologize. I can now go through and deploy, drum roll, this solution to a production environment. Now the thing is, the default pipeline that's been set up by my admin, it requires approval, okay? And so as I submit this particular agent, Ken is going to see it in his approval queue here in a moment. Now we talked about being able to evaluate and test the quality of my agent. And here it's actually trivial to auto-generate a test set of evaluations for my agent. I've already done that, and so we can actually look at the current test set. And what we'll see is that this agent is, maybe not necessarily the highest quality. The last run, it looked like it was 5 out of 10 results. We'll rerun that now. But again, I have a way to test and validate whether or not my agent is providing the level of quality or the level of responses that it should. And so again, this is not the best agent, to be clear. Do not deploy agents with 50% pass rate, okay? It's just our demo, and you can see it's real because it told me that my agent stinks, okay? Now, the other thing, of course, is that you have visibility into the performance of this agent. And of course, since it's brand new, I don't have that much information about it just yet, but we can see, hey, is my agent successful or not in the conversations that it's having? As we look at how it's responding, what is it using? How is it providing information? What tools is it using? Even providing information or insights into survey, thumbs up, thumbs down data that's been provided by my user. So again, a tremendous number of capabilities here around how I can quickly deploy my agents from dev and test to prod environments. Ability to test and validate my agents to see to it that they're at high quality, or in this case, that they're not. And then also have great visibility into how well my agent is operating. And so to show you from the admin perspective how all this is set up, I'd like to hand things over to Ken, and he can show us what this is like from an admin perspective.
Oh, it did. Where is my... Thank you, Ryan. Now, even though Ryan is my favorite redhead, I still need to understand what it is that he's actually deploying. So here I am now inside of the Deployment Hub, and I'm looking at all my deployments. I can have clear visibility as an admin quickly and easily. So I'm going to click into one of these now, and let me just ask a quick question. How many of you have looked at deployments and know exactly what it is you're approving? I don't see a single hand going up. Well, within Deployment Hub, we actually have the ability to have AI-generated descriptions. So we can reach inside, and AI, of course, you can disable this feature as well, but it can discover the intent of the agent and generate the description for you. So inside of here, I can now either approve or reject that deployment. Since Ryan gave out my phone number, I am going to reject it. Next, I can also monitor things inside of here. So, for example, I can view the performance of all of my agents, and I can even set up alerts on those agents. And to talk a little bit more about agents and some of the other new things that we have, I'm going to invite my second favorite redhead, who's wearing my favorite t-shirt, on stage to talk about code apps.
Thank you, Ken. First, let me wake up my machine. Sorry. Ooh, it was quick, it was fast. Let's go to 4. All right, for those developers, earlier we had talked about code apps. And we said, hey, Power Apps is for developers too, and that is absolutely right. My brother-in-law is a professional developer at a non-Microsoft company. He's like, what is this Canvas apps? What are model apps? And I said, just wait. You don't have to know Canvas. You don't have to know model apps. No problem. You can use the open web standard technology that you're familiar with, and you can use code apps and get the best of Power Apps, and also get the best of the managed platform. So here, we're not looking at powerapps.com, Visual Studio Code, but we are looking at a Power App. And so this is a React app. It happens to be using an SDK that brings in 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗏𝗃. It allows us to push this app into Power Platform. It also allows us to use those 1,400 connectors, or at least our favorite data sources that we choose out of that 1,400. Now, I've already pushed this app up into Power Apps. And actually, I want to highlight, I have 6 versions of this app. I have one app that I'm just going to show you. Yeah, the thing is real. It connects to data, no problem. And then I have 5 other variants that run up against different governance boundaries, because this is the managed platform. And we can accelerate development while staying within IT guardrails. So we're going to go to the first app. This is the React app you just saw. It's a basic project management dashboard. Yes, it's connected to Dataverse. And we're just demonstrating, yeah, we can build an app. But it's not about building the app, at least not this demo. And you can build wonderful apps. The first governance boundary we're going to show off is conditional access policies, not on all of Power Apps, the service. This is on this specific app. And there's a conditional access policy on this app. It happens to be a block policy. But imagine you can do any policy you want. Intranet-only access is a customer favorite. That could be applied here and respected. If you can't read the text, it says, yeah, I saw you. You can sign in, but you can't access this resource. That's us respecting the policy. Next, we're going to go to the consent dialog. But really what we're highlighting here is these apps, we say they get Microsoft 𝗦𝗲𝗏 out of the box. And if we went back to Visual Studio Code, you would see 0 lines of code that wired up auth. And any dev that had to wire up auth themselves, they don't get it right on the first, second, third. It's countless. But here they get it out of the box without writing any code. Next, share limits. A crowd pleaser for sure. It's if innovation is going to happen in a dedicated, safe place, sandbox environment, and you want a contained blast radius, or you don't necessarily want something to go viral before it should, well, that's enforced by code apps as well. So they can be built in those personal dev environments and only be wired up to deploy when they should be. Next, and sorry, this one's hard to see. These apps respect data loss policies, advanced connector policies. So of those 1,400 connectors, if there's something that's not allowed in your green zone or your yellow zone, well, if a code app was built in one of those zones, it won't use it. It will respect that governance boundary. And then, ooh, this is real. I'm using a virtual machine, but it's all real code. Last but not least, we're going to go up to quarantine. And so say we have all of our policies that, for your proactive governance. If there is an app that appears and it was within the guardrails, but you're still unsure about that app, you want to scrutinize it more or talk to the developer, well, then there's quarantine. And it respects that as well. And this is just to highlight, yes, we can accelerate line of business app development. We can reach new personas, not just creators, but developers. And this can all be done within the managed platform. And with that, I say thank you, and I want to hand it back to Ken.
Thanks, Austin. Going back just a step, talking about inventory. So Austin just showed us code apps. Within inventory, not only can I see apps, flows, agents, I can also have complete visibility of all of the wonderful code apps that Austin just built for us. In addition to that, I can also monitor all of the code apps that Austin built for us as well. And with that, I'm going to hand back off to Ryan, who will show us more.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. And so now I'd like to move into our third pillar of discussion for the day, managed transformation, because there's so much work and so much opportunity for us as we look to drive adoption of these technologies across our organization. Now, the first question that folks have, of course, is how much is this going to cost me? And so within the Power Platform Admin Center, we have a single location for you to manage your user-assigned licenses, your capacity that's been pre-purchased, as well as manage your pay-as-you-go billing instruments so that you can understand what these agents are costing you. Additionally, we see that it's critically important that we're able to identify the most impactful agents, the most impactful makers in our organization, because oftentimes we want to gather the best practices from those apps and agents and repeat those successes across our organization. Or if you have a rock star maker, what do you want to do? You want to put them on tour. You want them to evangelize and tell everybody else across the organization about the awesome things that they can do with these tools, rather than just us from a tech perspective trying to sell and pitch and encourage. And in fact, because of that, one of the things that we see is that today, a lot of centers of excellence or centers of enablement, you're really busy, right? And so we asked ourselves, what would it mean if we could actually extend your center of enablement with a set of agents? And so this is the evolution of Advisor, okay? In that the virtual center of enablement can now not only provide you with recommendations, but can also help you scaffold and structure the automated multi-step workflows required for you to complete and address many of these long-running or tedious tasks. You have an agent that's ownerless or an app that's ownerless. What do? You need to reassign it to a co-owner or to the person's manager or what have you. And so what we're trying to do is help automate more and more of those tedious workflows so that it's easy for you to focus on other aspects of driving AI adoption and enablement. And so what I'd love to do is, of course, we'll start with a quick little show and tell around how we can gather ROI information for the agents that we're building. Within the Analytics tab, I'm going to scroll up, and I'm going to calculate savings for this agent. Here we have two different modes for calculating ROI. I can either calculate based on the savings per run of the agent or savings per the different tools that my agent invokes. For the sake of simplicity, we'll go with per run. I will continue. And then if I say that this particular agent saves me 15 minutes every time I give out Ken's phone number, and it saves me, that was 8675309, so we'll go with $8. And now what will happen is every time this agent is invoked, we will begin to tally that return on investment so that you can begin to wrap your head around the ROI that agent usage is generating. Now, to take a broader view across the usage information and the agentic COE, I'd like to hand things over to Ken.
Thanks, Ryan. So this is something that I remember when I was still a customer, I was asking for this for quite some time. I always wanted to know who was doing what within my organization, so now you have it. Now you can track how your organization is using Power Platform resources across apps, automations, and agents within your entire org. You can see who's doing what and how much usage across the entire organization, as Ryan said. Also, this is another thing that I was asking for. Let's call it, again, as Ryan said, the agentic COE, and think of it as almost staff aug. So here, I have an action. I have a new app that was detected in the default. We've all established that we don't really care for the default, so I want to take action on this. So I'm going to review and take action. The plan's going to start to build, and I'm going to do a little bit of a cooking show right here as it actually builds, and here is now the new plan. So what am I going to do? I'm going to notify the app owner via Teams. I'm going to have it wait for 7 days, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to quarantine, at least that's the action I'm choosing to take on this, and I'm going to quarantine that app. Now, the app owner can still access that app and make modifications, so they can choose to now export that solution and move it to a different environment, but I can also choose to do things like automate it and maybe move it over or completely delete the app itself. Back over to you, Mr. Ryan.
Ken. And so our final pillar that we want to discuss today is security, because at the end of the day, if we don't have a secure baseline, all the things that we've talked about so far are for naught. And so within the Power Platform Admin Center, we provide you with the Security Hub so that you can understand your overall security posture across your low-code app and agent estate, as well as we provide you with specific recommendations that will help you harden your Power Platform deployment. Now, this includes things like advanced connector policies. Advanced connector policies are the evolution of DLP, or data loss prevention policies, within the Power Platform, and these are now extended to govern the use and connectivity to MCP servers as well. We provide rules that allow you to limit how agents can be published so that they cannot be published externally. And we see that many customers want visibility into each and every inference or each and every action that their agents are taking. And so, I apologize, there we go. We now have this capability as well for Copilot Studio, where Copilot Studio will integrate with Defender or an ecosystem of partners like 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗃𝗏, Palo Alto Networks, or Checkpoint that are able to scan and deeply inspect each and every conversation that occurs with your agents. And then, of course, we also continue to surface information protection labels for sensitive or labeled data in the Copilot Studio agent experience as appropriate. And so to show you what many of these security management capabilities look like, I'd like to hand things over to Ken.
Thank you, Ryan. So here I am within the Security Hub right now, and you can see I can see the security score. I can look at active recommendations within my tenant and things that I can take action on. I can even see things that I can learn and take other proactive recommendations. Now, in addition to that, I can now look at additional rules that we didn't cover earlier, such as advanced connector policies. So I'm just going to use the search features to quickly search for advanced connector policies. Everybody remember business, non-business, and blocked? That's gone. Now all we have is allowed and blocked. So that's it. Since nobody likes 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏, I can actually remove that. Or if I didn't like to, I can actually just remove another connector. I can, of course, filter down to other things. In addition to that, what did I just get out of the group by accident? Trying to move pretty quick. Let's say I wanted to control the authentication of my agents and ensure that no one could use anonymous access. I can even enforce those kind of rules. And I'm going to hand back over to Ryan to close.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. And so hopefully we've been able to show you today how you're able to enable innovation across your organization using a zoned governance model aligned to environment groups, environment rules, and the many different capabilities that we have, including pipelines, solutions, monitor, so on and so forth, to see to it that every one of these folks in your organization that can say yes or can say no has the controls that they need to digitally and intelligently transform your organization. Now, we've shown a lot today, and so if you'd like to learn more, one, we have 3 more sessions covering different dimensions of what we've spoken about today, and we have short links for each and every capability that we've demoed for you today. We have 1 minute remaining. I'd like to thank you all for your time. If you have questions, we'll continue to be here. I would ask that you please queue at the microphone, and we're happy to take your questions. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.